So I think that might be actually the last one. I thought it will be like 5 for 5, but it seems like this one is sixth in the series. And in this short tutorial, we will talk about classes, JavaScript classes. It's not that essential functionality, but in case of CopperCube, you really need to know what it is because the whole behaviors and actions system is based around JavaScript classes. So first of all, what class are? So just imagine the same, we will just take the same example as with license. Let's say how this driver license are made. First of all, you have a template for license. It has like a space for the photo. It has all the fields there, but they are not filled with anything. So then you're sort of getting the license. They just print your photo over it, and they print your data over it. And this is how it gets like the working documents. That's how like the object is created. But if we're talking about the template, about creating something from the template, that's basically how classes are works. Classes are templates for the objects. I mean, I hope it's good explanation. I'm not sure. Please comment. Okay, so let's talk about. Let's come back to our nice application where we have like our cities and temperatures. First of all, let's modify it a bit because let's say someone just changed something here, they just changed two variables in the second array, and now we have incorrect values to Paris because Paris is index 1 and temperature for Paris is now index 2 and Berlin is index 2 and temperature for Berlin is index 1. Basically, we won't run into this issue if in case we're using objects for to store this data, not only arrays. So we can create an array of objects here. So let's say we have the first object and just doing it like that so it looks pretty. We have city property there, we'll call it London, and we will have age. We will have temperature here, which is 18, and we will have second object, which will be city Paris, and which will be like temperature 26, and the very last one, we will have city Berlin and have temperature 23 there. So let's just get rid of this and we will iterate now over data, and from data, from data I, we getting the ith element of data. So it is with index 0, it will be this one. With index 1, it will be this one. With index 2, it will be this one. I changed from 0 to 2, as we already mentioned. From ith element, we get city, and here we will get we will just change this to data also, and we will get temp. Basically, we can modify now we can modify print function to only receive uh, an object, and we can just change the function itself, but it's not something we're gonna do. Let's run it once again and make sure that everything is working. And for historical accuracy, let's just change this values back. Yeah, there is also another thing which I forgot to mention, and this is how we iterate through the array. So currently we have this value hard-coded here, and if, for example, amount of objects is changing, we will get an error here because item with index 2 doesn't exist anymore. In order to fix it, since we already know what properties are, we can actually use array properties called length here in order to get array length. So it basically returns the length of the array. And okay, you also need to modify, slightly modify this one, because array length is a number of elements inside the array. So it will be 3 elements because they're 3 in total. So you had 2 here previously. Now it's 3, so it shouldn't be less or equal. It should be strictly less. Yeah, something like that. And what console? Okay, console log. And so as you can see, there are 3 elements, and now it iterates through the array with no issues, no matter how many items do we have here. It always will show us the correct result. This is much more cleaner way of setting this condition if you iterate through the array. Okay, so we are sort of like talking about not the topic, but this is also something that is important to cover, I think. So basically, how we can use classes to, as you can see, like these objects inside this array, they're actually quite similar. They have, they sort of have like the same properties. It's always city and also always temperature. And basically what we can do to simplify this, we can just create a function which will create our city for us. So we just put city there and temperature there, and it will return us a new object which will have property city, which will have value of city, and it will have property temperature which will have the temperature. They named the same, but basically this is a property of array, and this is a variable containing, let's just rename it so it's more clear. So C and T, I hope that's a little bit clearer now. So this is a variable which is received from the function call, and this is property of an object. So now instead of like doing instead of defining objects here, we can just call like create and call like London, and then what it was, 80 or something, and it will work pretty much the same as it was before. I can just probably change everything to that approach right now. So it's 23, 26, 22. Oh, 22. That's it. So as you can see, once again, we have a much clearer code right now. But this approach is actually not the best way how we can do it. Another way is finally, finally, we're talking about it after 8 minutes in this video, is to use classes. Classes in JavaScript, they're a little bit different from other languages. It's because JavaScript doesn't actually use the class system. If you're talking about inheritance, it uses prototype-based inheritance, and this is also something that we won't be covering in scope of these tutorials because it's a more advanced topic, and you will never use it in CopperCube, most likely. Once again, if you want to know like how prototype-based inheritance work in JavaScript, you can Google it or ask ChatGPT. Another thing is that current version of JavaScript, modern JavaScript, it actually has a syntax for classes, but it was only introduced in language version ES6, where we are stick with ES3, which is basically supported by SpiderMonkey version 1.8, which is used in CopperCube, in CopperCube, yeah, as a JavaScript. Is a JavaScript engine. So I'm just talking sideways for some reason. Let's talk about how you define the class. Basically, class is a function. What is your price? Then you need to provide a name. I will call it city data. And as you can see, the difference also is that if you define a function, you will start it with a lowercase letter. If you define a class, usually you start it with uppercase. This is not something that you should do, that you have to do, I mean, because it will work if it's lowercase, but it's something that you should do in order to keep your code concise. In here, the same way as we passed these CNT values to our create function, we can pass these two values CNT, but now we are going to use this keyword, which we mentioned is used inside function in order to get properties of these functions of the object. We can just say that this city, so it will be property named city equals to C, and this temperature is equals to T. So that way we will create a class constructor. And in order to create instance of class, we need to use a new keyword. So it will be city data, and will be also new city data, and it will also be new city data. You get the idea. It's also new city data. So that way, it's even sort of more concise way of defining the object. Basically, this is templating. This is creating an object from template, and this template is called class. And now, if you run the application once again, we will receive pretty much the same result. If you instancing, let's say, if you instancing the single object using using like new keyword, it acts pretty much the same as a regular object. So you can access like it's city, let's say, property, and it will just print you the city. So it's London. There is a slight difference in how you define methods for classes. Basically, the idea is that inside the object, you can just specify some sort of like property and assign function to it, and it will be the method. But you can basically you can do the same with classes. So let's just say it's like funct1, and it's actually equals to function, and it's just, let's just say like return hello, and then we'll just call object1 function and console.log. That's it. And you can see it just returns hello. But this is considered to be a bad practice, because in case like you create 4 instances of the same object of type city data, this function this function, this method, I mean, called function, will be copied to every object inside of these 4. And in order to avoid this, in order to sort of save the memory, what people usually do is they access a prototype of function, and they then define I mean of the node of the class, and they define a function there, and then you do pretty much the same. So you just return what it was, hello. So it's the same syntax, and it's even more complicated, but we need this. You need to understand that this is pretty much the same as we had with the class, with an object before. So this is just a method of this class. This is important because this is the base of behaviors built in JavaScript, or in JavaScript and CopperCube. So I think this is it regarding the classes, and I just realized that I need another really short video. It will be related to another flow control operator. So stick with me.